My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum. Having a little trouble handling Rico and the controls at the same time. But we're here. Say we're here. We're here. And we're live on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Literally millions of people are watching, we believe. We're going to talk about, would you sit up here? We're going to talk about a few things. I think Dan Rather is a communist. I'll play something that this guy's off his rocker. And you want to talk about off your rocker? In Denmark, they have a program called Hug a Jihadist, where they're trying to convince jihadists that they should forget the jihad and just come hang out with them because they love them or something. I don't know. We'll talk about that. Let's get it started. All right, hold on. I can't do it with Rico. All right. The dog is down. For a little dog, he sure is bulky. All right, you can go on. Move. All right, so actually, if you got One American News, if you have access to that, I'm actually on One American News right now. I taped the interview earlier. That's why I was running a little bit behind. And so that's airing actually right now. I'm actually looking at it on the TV right now. And yeah, they let me use, like Newsmax, they let me use my my set in the background. So that's great. So what we were talking about in there is North Korea and some other stuff. Stuff that I've covered already this week. But let me see what we got going on here. How many numbers we got? We got low numbers on Facebook tonight, in the 60s. So if you haven't shared, I noticed this last night. We had like 140 people on last night, and there was only like 90 shares. So we got to get more people on. We have to share this more. If you're on Twitter, retweet it. I don't know what you do on YouTube. I say this every night. I don't really know what we do on YouTube. But there's it says 11 people. I don't really know why YouTube even promotes their chat or their live videos, because it's not like there's any audience on here, unless I'm one of those people that they're suppressing, which very well could be, because they don't like people in YouTube. Apparently, Google and YouTube don't like people to have an opinion outside of the opinion that they hold. So. Which, you know, kind of leads me to my first topic tonight, which is Dan Rather. So, yeah, Annie, if you're watching, if you turn the TV on, you'll see me on right now. And then you can watch on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook at the same time doing a live show. So, yeah, that interview is just about over. We were talking about McMaster and how he should be fired, and how, which I think we've had Rich Higgins on this show before. I know I've been with him on Sean Hannity's radio show. I think I've interviewed him on David Webb's show as well. So last night, before I get to talking about Dan Rather, last night on YouTube, we had a troll. And, I was torn because everybody was handling this guy so well. He wasn't your typical troll, though. It didn't seem as though he was like a liberal. It looked like he was a... I don't know Jocko Willink, by the way, so I can't really give you an opinion on Jocko. But this guy would not relent. And so, but there's nothing I can do about it when the show's going because I can't block people while the show is going. So I got off afterwards, and I was watching Craig and him go back and forth, and the guy kept getting more and more volatile. Now, there's trolls, and then there's crazy people, and I'm pretty sure that this guy last night was crazy, or he, I don't know, jealous, I don't know, because the stuff he was saying didn't really make sense. I know I talk all over the place at times, but those people that tune in this show on a regular basis, they realize that we do get to the point, and we usually dig much further than the mainstream media ever covers. So I don't know what this guy's problem was, but I want to give a shout out to Craig and everybody else that was involved with that, going after that guy. You did a great job. And unfortunately, you know, it's a catch-22 when we have somebody on there that trolls the site, because it gives you everybody a chance to go after somebody and get together. But at the same time, it really takes away from the whole dialogue. So, you know, if you see somebody like that on Facebook, Twitter, I can block them live. But and I apologize, there's a couple people that have been blocked on Twitter because of my big, huge hands. And when I go to actually block the one person, if they're too close, it'll block both of them. So I apologize for that. But by and large, if you see somebody like that on Facebook, you can let me know about it. If I figure out how I can block them live, I think I may have to go on my other computer and do it. I'll try to do it. But otherwise, I don't even entertain them. Because it's going to take away from you actually partaking in the dialogue, the right dialogue. Let me fix this here. There you go. So let's go ahead and talk about Dan Rather. I've never been a fan of Dan Rather. He's another one of these liars, embellishers. He's another one of these people like Brian Williams or CNN in general. Katie Couric, all these people that work in media. I don't know if you've realized this, but if you start looking into a lot of these people, they don't even have college degrees. They didn't finish. The majority of people that were moderators for the presidential debates don't even have college degrees. I think one of the people from CNN had a degree. The rest of them dropped out of college. I was shocked when I read that. But it kind of goes to who these people are. They're activists. They're not really journalists. We need to not mistake the fact that that people are that these people don't really know a whole lot of what they get into. I was on Newsmax earlier today, and I got a little upset with somebody because they come on with me, and she's actually a nice person, but I get a little disturbed when people are on a panel and they don't know each other's names. Now, on Sean Hannity's show, I did know the guy's name was Harry, but I couldn't pronounce the guy's last name, so I said the other guest, and Sean actually scolded me about that. So it was pretty interesting. But I don't know what the deal is with the majority of these journalists. So even, let's say they even do get a college degree, they don't have any life experience, the majority of these people, besides journalism, yet they pontificate and they have opinions about everything. And I'm not telling anybody that's watching this show anything that they don't know. I just don't understand. It's hard for me to figure out how media, honestly, how media even stays in business. Because One American News, they give you the news. And I actually believe if One American News had reporters out in the field for breaking news, they would have it summed up. You wouldn't really need anybody else for news. CNN was kind of that way. Headline News was that group for the longest time. Headline News is like watching People magazine now. It's like there's really no news on there. In fact, they don't call it Headline News. It's called HNL, I think, or HLN. So they don't even call it Headline News. So I'm not really sure how the news organizations even stay in business, because most people don't watch them. They're so left or right-leaning that you don't get anything out of it. You don't get the full story. You just get opinion from people who, by and large, don't have any life experience to give you a correct, even an educated opinion. Fox News, I don't know where they're going, man. These Murdoch brothers have basically destroyed Fox News. And, you know, there's some people at Fox that have destroyed their own careers. I'm not going to take away from that. But one on Twitter says they funnel money and ads and brainwash. That you're about right. Where I just don't know, folks. I don't know. I'm puzzled by this. But let's listen. Here's the other side of media. Now, Dan Rather's older, so he actually speaks from a different era of media, and it should show you the reality. I was having a talk with somebody last night about the 60s and the equal rights movement, and how a lot of the people that are involved with media today and the educational sector today were directly related for the equal rights movement in the 60s. Now, I do believe that communism was deeply involved with the equal rights movement. Not that we didn't need the equal rights movement. I think what came out of the equal rights movement was perfect. It put people on an even scale, which they should be. And by and large, that was the beginning of the end for racism in this country, and it's changed the world. The 60s did a fantastic job. But I do believe that something was happening, and I think there's proof to show this, that the communist movement was there, and they were recruiting a lot of people and teaching them skill sets. A lot of these people learned how to fight for equal rights, and I don't think a lot of people realize that subversive groups like the Russians back in that day, they use equal rights or anything that's going to disrupt or break up the people where they're not seeing eye to eye. The communist movement, they use those types of subversive tactics. So it wouldn't surprise me, and I think there is proof to show that they were involved with the equal rights movement in the 1960s. It's just that the equal rights movement was real and we needed it. They got in there. They taught a lot of these people, these teachers, people from colleges, unions, and they recruited these people. They worked, they taught them all these skill sets, and then they went into the private sectors and carried those on, not necessarily just with the equal rights and divisiveness, but also with the burning desire to crush our Constitution and get away from the republic and the rule of law that we have and the way our government is set up. That's basically the way that works. So let's listen to old Dan Rather. Hold on one second here. Let me pull this up here. I don't know if you can see this. This is off of Fox News.
News so often is what the public needs to know that someone, particularly someone in power, doesn't want them to know. Everything else is pretty much advertising and propaganda. Obviously, President Trump and those in his administration didn't want this information out. But somebody somewhere said, you know what? The public really needs to know this, and they did a public service.
Now, what they're talking about right there, what he's talking about are the leaks in the White House. Now, I'm going to play that again. I really want you to concentrate on what this fruitcake is saying. He is saying, and it's coming out of his mouth on MSNBC, this was replayed on Fox News, he is saying that leaking is justified if you don't agree with the way that the administration is doing things. There was nothing in there saying that anything was illegal, and even if it is, there is a way that you can go about showing that things are going on that aren't right. There's a whistleblower cause and all this stuff. These people, they do it mainly for ratings and because they're in cahoots with these journalists and activists. Let me play this again here.
needs to, that someone, particularly someone in power, doesn't want them to know. Everything else is pretty much advertising and propaganda. Obviously, President Trump and those in his administration didn't want this information out, but somebody somewhere said, you know what, the public really needs to know this, and they did a public service.
So he calls leaking a public service. This guy is as close to a communist as you can go without waving a flag that has a hammer and sickle on it. That's the truth. And I think he is a perfect example of the media. I think the fact that he didn't go away, the fact that he wasn't so embarrassed that he couldn't show his head again after the mistakes that they made with the embellishment of information or not verifying information, whatever the problem was. I mean, the guy is as liberal, and he's a fan of WikiLeaks. Well, you know, interesting. I'm not a fan of WikiLeaks, to tell you the truth. I know that it worked out for us this time with the Clintons, but the reality is WikiLeaks has no filter, and Julian Assange is a narcissist and potentially a psychopath. They don't care if people get killed. Don't be mistaken, folks, when your enemies do you a favor. If you've ever worked in an environment where you have people in your office that are just nefarious and mean people, and all of a sudden they do something nice for you, and you're like, I don't know, maybe they're a pretty good person, you know. Don't buy into that, because they're just setting you up for something. And that's the same thing with WikiLeaks. Yeah, they did a good job this time, but I don't see WikiLeaks as an honorable and upstanding group of people. The reality is it's hackers, it's journalists, it's people that know that when they get that information and get it out there, it's going to sell papers. Papers selling gets advertising. That's it. That's the way that works. So don't be fooled by these journalists. Most of them are not that highly educated. Most of them are elitist. They're globalists. And they believe because they read a teleprompter that has the news on it that they are part of the news. I've seen it. I've been on set with people before. They have the biggest attitudes because they literally believe they are part of the news every day. The only thing they are is a mouthpiece for the news. That's it. And most of that news, as he even said right there, is propaganda. That's the reality of that. Now, I don't think I have to harp on this for too long because people do realize that's the way this stuff is. But I want to go real quick. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a shorter show because tomorrow, in case I didn't announce it to everybody, tomorrow I'm hosting on Newsmax at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be there by myself hosting the show. And then I'm going to be hosting tomorrow evening for on Sirius XM Patriot Channel at 9 p.m. That's the Patriot Tonight show. I'll be hosting that tomorrow night and Friday. So this show will air at 7 p.m. tomorrow and 7 p.m. Friday. Friday's show won't be quite as long, and I'm going to be completely worn out by the end of all this, but I'm going to push through and do it. So today alone I did an interview on Newsmax, on Sean Hannity's radio show, One American News. I'm doing my show now, and I never left my apartment. And edited my book. I literally walked Rico for about 20 minutes today, and that's about the extent of my time outdoors today. So tomorrow is going to be very similar, except I'll be spending time traveling back and forth to the studios. I'm going to do Newsmax at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on Sean Hannity's radio show at 5 p.m. with Rick Unger. We do this every Thursday. And then I'll be hosting this show tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and then going over to Sirius XM Patriot Channel at 9 p.m. So that's tomorrow. And then again, the show is going to be 7 p.m. on this show will be 7 p.m. on Friday. I'll be at Sirius at 9 p.m. So let's move to this next story that I think is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Let me get rid of Dan Rather's face here. So I have a good friend that lives in Denmark. She's from Denmark. I have yet to ask her about this.
When you come to Denmark,
So this is a real thing, folks. This is no joke, okay? This is no joke, and I want you to listen to what these... This is complete... You got to remember, Denmark is a socialist country. Now, they're a socialist I forget the word I'm looking for here. They are a socialist. I'm forgetting the word. Well, they're a socialist country. They do have an open market, financial market. So, but I'm forgetting that word. It has to do with this, with our economic market. Anyway, it's not important. They're a socialist country, and one of these days I'm going to have to get a brain room, or I'll just get people to sit in front of me and yell at me when I get it wrong. They are a socialist country, and they have ran into a big problem with immigrants, and they see, a lot of these people see what's happening, but this is pure appeasement. Now you can't really see it because this video is so far away, but you're going to be shocked when you hear what these liberal appeasers are saying. Capitalist, that's the word I was looking for. A socialist capitalist country. That's Denmark. Okay, here we go.
When you come to Denmark very young with your parents and you move from a war-torn country, you feel trapped between two worlds.
Okay, that person that was talking is a jihadist. Not an authority, not some nice person. That's a jihadist.
In my mind, I was like, they treated me as a terrorist. If they want a terrorist, they will get a terrorist.
So that's another one of these jihadists that traveled over and fought and then came back, which he was welcomed back. And he said that he felt as though he was treated like a jihadist, and if that's the way they want to treat him, that's what they're going to get. So these people are equating themselves to like Vietnam veterans that go over and fight and then come back and fight for freedom and come back and get treated badly. That's what this guy's acting like. He's come back, he's being treated like a jihadist, and so he's going to be a jihadist.
At this point, they told me that he was in Syria, that he was with Daesh, and he was martyred.
He was dead?
Yeah.
So you called them directly?
Yes, and invited them to come to the police station for a chat.
So this is the, I guess, police chief or somebody like that. He invited these people down that had traveled overseas and fought and come back to Denmark. He invited them in to have a chat.
They could get some kind of help having a good life here in the city.
Do you think it's a bad example?
It is. Go out and be jihadist, you will get a lot of privilege from the society. That's wrong, in my opinion. We should persecute them, not reward them.
So I'm going to try to have the guy that was speaking the last at on the last part there. I have a contact that's friends with him, and I'm going to try to have him on the show. I'll tell you what his name is. He's not a liked person. There's been several hits on him that have been put out when people have put a jihad on him, and I forget what his name is. His name is Nasser, and I don't remember his last name, but I'm going to try to have him on. Nasser Kader, and I'm going to have him on the show and talk about this nonsense of hug a jihad. And that should be an interesting conversation. He is profoundly against this nonsense. I mean, folks, listen. In France today, they had 6 soldiers ran over and by a jihadist. Let's stop calling him jihadist. A fundamental Muslim that hates anything but Islam. And I can't help but think that, especially France, Denmark as well, but France, when are these people going to get it? When are they going to get a clue that they're at war? I mean, okay, so there's not, the enemy doesn't have planes and they're not dropping bombs and you don't see massive amounts of soldiers walking through the streets. But the reality is France is at war. They're going to continue to be attacked. And if you have 6 soldiers walking through a war zone, happy-go-lucky, and not have people in a perimeter watching out where they're going, when they've displayed the type of attack that they're going to do, either a knife or a gun or run people over with a car, and you're not looking for the odd behavior. You're just out there walking in your uniform thinking that you're all great and c'est la faire, and isn't that how you say that? C'est la vie, such is life, and they're just living life. Hey, like the French do. And then they got plowed over by a car. It's the same thing in Denmark. These people think that they're just going to convince these people that, hey, you're loved here in this country. There's nothing wrong. It's, don't feel like we look down upon you because you went over and massacred people. That's the reality, folks. That it's not gonna work. You can't hug an ideology out of somebody unless you squeeze them so hard you kill them. That's the way it goes. They're not gonna hug the fundamental Islamic ideology out of any of these people. And in France, if they don't get a clue, they're going to fall to Islam because they're at war and they're still at war, and they're at war with fundamental Islam, and they are still bringing Muslim migrants from the Middle East into their country. Somebody just asked me on Twitter, is it the people or is it their government? Well, I think it's a good question. I would have to say, based on my training and experience and observation skills of doing years and years of surveillance and studying people, it's the people. I mean, look, the soldiers are walking through a war zone. You would not get soldiers walking down a sidewalk in Iraq or Afghanistan in full uniform, la-di-da-di-da, thinking nothing's going to happen because they're going to get killed. They wouldn't do it in Syria. Why are they doing it in France? They're doing it in France because they don't realize they are at war. They don't realize that they're under a constant threat and that these people want to kill them. They don't have a clue. And until they get that clue, they're going to continue to suffer at the hands of fundamental Islam and the tires and the guns and the knives of fundamental Islam. That's the truth. So I'm just looking at what you guys are writing here. How do we fix it? It says, how do you fix it? I don't fix France. France fixes themselves. The reality is, if you haven't watched it, the very first episode I ever did of this show, I could bring it up and play it tonight if you guys want to watch. And it's only it's not very long. But the reality is, there needs to be like a four-stage strategic war where we have a coalition that goes over there, and we don't stop. We don't do this mother of all battles. We don't send out a big bomb, a Moab, or we don't use cruise missiles. We go through there in the Middle East, and we literally crush this forward movement of fundamental Islam. Crush it. Bring it to its knees. We don't stop at Fallujah when Fallujah's over. We keep moving forward. We clear it out. And when we do that, at the same time, people need to fix their borders all around the world. They need to stop and reject these globalist ideologies that say that there shouldn't be borders. Just because you have borders doesn't mean that you're a group of nasty individuals. It means that you understand that your country has to have security. I mean, look, there's jihadists going all over the world killing people. There's a crazy man in North Korea that is constantly saying he's going to nuke somebody, nuke us or nuke Guam or nuke something. Russia is constantly playing games, although Russia, to me, is about as much of a threat as Israel is to the United States. Russia's not going to do anything. Russia spies on us. They try to steal our secrets. They are an industrial threat to us. They're not so much of a political threat, at least in my opinion, of a direct threat. Israel does industrial espionage on us. Israel spies on America. That's right, they do. We spy on them as well because we rely on each other politically, and you spy on your allies so that you know exactly what's going on. Because look, folks, if you think our country is the only one where you can't trust politicians, if you had honest, caring, loving, hardworking, disciplined politicians that wanted the best for each country, you wouldn't have to have intel groups. You wouldn't have to have agencies like the CIA or the NSA. You have those because you can't trust politicians, period. You can't trust attorneys. I know a couple of good attorneys. Paul Callen's one of them. I have to say that as a disclaimer. But, you know, by and large, a lot of these politicians are attorneys. They'll sell you down the river. They're nefarious people. The higher they get in politics, the more globalist they become. And look, quite frankly, I believe that leads to a couple of families that have the majority of the banking money. And I know this sounds conspiratorial, and I don't have proof for it, but I think there's good circumstantial evidence. It all leads back to Satan. It does. All this stuff leads back straight to him. And if the Facebook little Twitter fingers or the little twitchy tech fingers on Facebook don't like that, or on Twitter or on YouTube, well, you can kiss my big muscly ass, because I don't care. I don't care what you all think when I mention Jesus or when I talk about fundamental Islam and when I tell the truth about these things from an educated, operational standpoint. If you haven't worked around these people, if you haven't studied religion, shut your mouth, block me, do whatever you got to do. I don't care, because that's the truth, and that's all that's going to come out of my mouth. So that's the way I feel about that. Now, as far as North Korea goes, we talked a little bit about that today. I think we got a couple things going there. We need to put the huge pressure on China to do something. China's the one country that could probably do something militarily, and there would be ramifications for it, but there wouldn't be ramifications like there would be for in the case if we did it. But I'll tell you this, just looking at things, I haven't studied this tremendously, but looking at it from a tactical perspective, Seoul, Korea is 30-something miles away from the border of North Korea, and I would think that somehow, some way, we would have to lay waste from the border in towards North Korea far enough to where they couldn't use any munitions, that they could lob anything into Seoul, Korea. So literally, you would have to decimate very quickly that whole region in the border region for like 100 miles in from Seoul, Korea towards North Korea, and just eliminate any of those threats. And I'm not talking about B-1 bombers. I'm talking about if somebody wants to start threatening you with nukes, and they're threatening, they have one, they can throw it over now into the largest 27 million people live 30 miles from North Korea. Well, then you got to make the first strike. And that's the way I feel about that. You can try sanctions. You can do all these things. If they could take out and assassinate Kim Jong-un, I believe that would be effective. You'd have to kill his sister as well, because she's just as nasty. And there's a few family members left. He's killed the majority of them. And I'm learning this from somebody that I was on Newsmax the other day with about it's an expert in North Korea and China. And so you would have to kill the other family members as well. But listen, this is a truth. This is what we're facing. If we do nothing, they're going to continue to grow in strength by the weapons that they're creating. It's not like their country's going to get more prosperous or they're going to grow physically. They're going to grow stronger because of the sheer weaponry that they're developing right now. And Obama and Clinton and all these people, and like I'm going to even say the Bushes, should be ashamed of themselves for not taking care of this problem long ago, before they had nuclear weapons. And in fact, I think it was Bill Clinton did the same thing with North Korea as we did with, as the Obama administration did with Iran, where they said, no, listen, they're just getting nuclear reactors to help their city out. We're going to be nice and diplomatic and help them with that. And now what do you have? I just saw a report today that they have like 60 nuclear weapons. 60. I don't know if that's true, but that's crazy. So we suffer because of the sins of our fathers. It says it in the Bible. That book's over 2,000, it's thousands of years old. We don't actually know how old it is. Thousands of years old, thousands of years ago. God himself said that when you sin, generations, for so many generations after will sin, those that turn to me, the sins will be wiped away, and the generations after you will be blessed. Well, when our founding, not founding fathers, but our presidents and crooked congressmen like Nancy Pelosi or John McCain or these people, when they don't go after an enemy, the generations after are going to suffer, and they're going to suffer greatly. And that's basically where we're at. They could have stopped this problem years and years ago. They didn't stop it. China is now growing to a point where I have a friend that was over there. He may be watching. He'll know if because I'm telling the story. I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, but he was over in China recently, and they had, this is the way they work over there. They don't have unions. They don't have, they have a flat 15% flat tax, so there's no IRS. A lot more people are getting richer over there than there are here. And so they needed to build a highway that was 40 miles long. They announced they needed to do it. He said there was like literally thousands of trucks. Most of these are private, large private trucks that people own. And they just showed up to move dirt and to get the stuff in there. And it would take them about 2 months to build a 40-mile, six-lane freeway. 2 months. Anybody that lives in and around New York, or even better, Detroit, and up in that area in Michigan, you never see those orange barrels go away. They're there. They're just there. They're permanent fixtures. Meanwhile, in China, because they don't have the union problem, they don't have the regulation and the red tape problem, they just simply say, we need a road built here, and they build an incredible road 40 miles long in 2 months. So somebody said there the middle class in China has gone through the roof. I don't know what you mean by that. You mean their middle class is growing? Because if that's the case, China's becoming what we were. Let's see what else we got going on here. Who's Billy? So what's Billy saying here? Everybody's jumping on Billy. Let's see. Our founding fathers believed that the right to practice your own religion. Okay. Let me see what else. What's Billy saying here? Do I know Billy? Or is Billy new to the show? Not all Muslims are radical. Oh, Billy's new to the show. Okay, so let me read what you're saying here, Billy, and I'll respond to this. Not all Muslims are radical, and ridding the earth of all of them is genocide. Okay, I didn't say rid all the earth of Muslims. What I said was we need to go through there and we need to clean house of the jihadists and the fundamentalists. If Islam wants to progress, that's fine. But here's the difference between genocide, like happened in Armenia 101 years ago, 202 years ago, where 1.5 million Armenians were killed and their souls were pushed away from this earth. That was genocide. They hadn't declared any warfare on anybody. They hadn't done anything to anybody. It's just that who came in there? Who was it? The fundamental Muslims came in and declared a caliphate in and around the region of Turkey, and the Turkish leaders allowed the caliphate to exist there, and they immediately started killing Christians. Okay, that's a genocide. Let's go back to, let's look at World War II. Let's go forward from that point to World War II. Hitler and all the racist bunch got themselves in a position of power and immediately went after the Jews who had done nothing. And what did they do? They started killing them. They just started killing and to eradicate the entire society of Jews. That's genocide. Now, Billy Below, Islam is who's declared war on us and the rest of the world. We didn't do it. We're not going out there. Genocide is when you purposely go out there to eradicate a group from the earth, for almost like a lion when they go into a pride and there's cubs that have been birthed from another male lion, and the next male that comes in kills those cubs for the only reason that they want their lineage to go forward and not that previous cub or lion. That in a way is almost like genocide, where groups come in and they eradicate these people because they just don't want them on the earth. They don't want them mixing with them as far as breeding goes, and they have all these crazy ideas. That's genocide. Defending yourself, Billy, that's not genocide. We didn't go and seek a war with Islam. Islam sought the war with us, and they sought the war with the rest of the world. They declared it in 1979, but the reality is they've been at war with the world up and down since 1400 years ago when Muhammad walked this earth. So the reality is we need to go over there where this all originates from, and we need to push back the fundamentalist. It's not radical. I didn't call them radical. He says not all Muslims are radical. I don't think these people are radical. I think they're fundamentalist. Now, I have good friends. Nina from Sirius, she's going to be producing my show on Friday. She's a Muslim. She's not a fundamentalist. She's a progressive. She can coexist with other people. And I think the world of her. She's an incredible person, and she does a very professional job. And she's also my friend. But she's not a fundamentalist Muslim. And we've had our debates and gone back and forth on stuff, but I can guarantee you if Nina was overseas and she saw the reality of who these people are and how deeply they believe in their religion, she, might have it. I don't know I'm not going to speak for her. But the reality is these people are fundamentalists in their beliefs, and they believe in jihad. They believe in killing. They believe, Billy, in eradication of all the non-believers on the earth. Now, let's take a step back for a second. I'll even take a drink. Let you ponder that for a second. Islam, fundamental Muslims, and Islam itself preaches eradication of all non-believers on the earth. Think about that. What would that be called? I'll give you another second. It's called genocide. That's what Islam wants. That's what fundamental Muslims want. They want to kill and eradicate all non-believers from the earth. That's called genocide, Billy. We're not the ones going out and doing that. We're not the ones going out and saying that that's the way it should be. We didn't start that fight. So, not all, I already answered that question, whether or not all Muslims are radical. The fact is, what they want to do is genocide in the world of everybody else but their believers. That's why they go through the Middle East killing all the Muslims that don't believe exactly like they do. They still believe that they are in some way, shape, or form not necessarily infidels, but they believe that their belief system is off, so they're going to do them a favor and they're going to kill them. It's an animalistic way of living. It's the way the fundamental Islamic jihadists believe. That core group of people was huge. It was the majority. It was Islam in the day of Muhammad. After several generations after Muhammad, like it always happens in rock bands, for instance, you got the original crew, and then when the leader overdoses on drugs or leaves, and they get somebody else in there, it just falls to pieces because their egos take over, and this person wants to be in charge, kind of like the Eagles were. Well, after Muhammad died, a couple generations after, they had major issues as deciding where the caliph would come from. Was it a direct lineage from Muhammad, or was it passed down through the, and I'm giving this as a rough overview, but or would it go through the imams, and the authority would go through them? Now that's where you get the Sunni and Shia split, and so Islam decreased in its power throughout the world. But then when oil came about and they got very rich very fast, these fundamentalists, because they're very religious, these fundamentalists started to gain power. And when they got access to Iran, it really took off. At the same time, you had Saudi Arabia gain power because of their seat of their king. And the whole process of how they got rich and powerful is long and arduous. But just know this. The more money and the further that Islam spread again, it started to go down the path of fundamentalism. and the fundamentalists started to grow in power. And that's what's happening. It's not America. It's not free people. It's not anybody that I know that's gone out and declared war on Islam. It's Islam declaring war on the world. Now, question, because I can't read all these texts, but this is for Billy, because he brought this up, and I don't know who Billy is, so I'm going to ask Billy this question. Knowing all that, and I hope you accept that as the truth, because that's the truth. We haven't declared war on anybody. We should have declared war on them. We should have declared war after they declared war on us. We should have taken care of the problem. But just like North Korea, like the war on drugs, like everything else that we get involved with, we don't stop it. So here's the question. If somebody declares a war on us and they want to commit genocide on us and they literally say they want to eradicate the world of all non-believers, what do you suggest we do, Billy? What do you suggest we do? How do you fight that? And as it's growing faster and faster with social media, with ability to fly faster and get to places quicker, with more and more politics, which means it makes security worse. I know we have a lot of technology out there, but the reality is the worse politics get, the worse our national security is, the worse it is any type of security gets when you add red tape and political hacks into the policy-making process. So what do you suggest we do? I'll wait. And I'm not trying to say you're an instigator, Billy. I seriously want to know, what do people want? What do you think this world is? Human beings, and I'll wait for you to type up what you're going to say, but I want you to think about this. You go onto the plains of Africa. Those are raw animals. There's no culture. There's no domestication. Those are brutally wild animals. There's some animals that are prey and some animals that are predators. There's animals that are predators but also become prey to other animals because they're bigger and stronger. But interestingly enough, even those animals, when they work together with their like kind, they can crush the other bigger, faster animal. I want everybody to realize this. What you see on the plains of Africa, it's very, very similar. The separation from that and human nature and culture in the world, and this human culture, and we got to take care of everybody and love everybody. So when you go to Vegas, right? When you go to, think about this, when you go to Greece and you look at the Parthenon and you look there, that thing's been there for thousands of years and it's made out of marble and stuff, right? That's not falling anytime soon. You go to the Colosseum in Rome, that was made, or the pyramids in Egypt. Those things were made by sweat and blood. People died making those things. It's real. It's not falling. It's sturdy. You go to Las Vegas and you look at a wall and you say, man, this is some incredible marble they got right here. You literally could take your hand and punch through it because it's drywall that's been painted to look like marble by somebody who's a very experienced artist. So what does that have to do with this conversation? Well, what happens on the plain of Africa, that's animalistic. That's like the Egyptian pyramids or the Parthenon or the Colosseum in Rome. Human culture is about as thick as that drywall that you would punch your hand through in Las Vegas. It looks pretty, it looks powerful, but the reality is human nature can be corrupted so easily, especially by a religious ideology that people are born into, and they don't question it. So they don't question the actions that are happening. And the more religious they get, the more drawn into that they are, because human beings are only a step away from being animalistic. And the only way you can defend yourself against people that fight at that level is by being a more deadly, a more vicious, a more violent fighter. That's the only way you defeat them. You don't hug it out like they're trying to do in Denmark. You don't try to defeat them through their hearts and minds. You kill them before they kill you. That's the way you fight a war. And we cannot simply sit back when people declare war on us. When in North Korea they get a madman that says he wants to bomb our allies and bomb us with nuclear weapons, you can't just sit back and expect all good things to occur. Because, like I said, we're just one step away from the plains of Africa, where survival of the fittest, where the strongest rule, and I can guarantee you there's no transgender people walking around there because they'd just be killed and eaten. If they had a transgender zebra, for instance, it would just be another bit of food for the lion. Why am I even bringing that up? Because we put all these politically correct things in our military, and then we worry about we can't go in and fight Islam because that'd be genocide. You got to learn about warfare. You got to learn how people fight, because the reality is we're very close to getting our ass handed to us if we don't start forward thinking these things and striking first before they strike us. Now let me go back. I didn't see if you wrote anything. See, here's the other thing. Okay, here we go, Billy. You're killing me with these narratives that you're spewing out. Who created ISIS and creates all the wars known to mankind? Human beings do that. America didn't start every war known to mankind, okay? ISIS is no different than Al-Qaeda, than Boko Haram, than the Taliban, than any of these other groups. My camera's jumping all over the place. ISIS is no different than any of those groups. Uh-oh. Looks like I'm having a malfunction here. Hold on, folks. I had a malfunction. Hold on. There it goes. We're back. Bingo. See what happens when I get riled up? I kicked something under my desk. I think it was a Pelican case. That's what I get for keeping a go bag underneath my desk. So, as I was saying there, you can't just fight these wars in a politically correct way. And as far as who started these wars over since the beginning of mankind, human beings have done that. Human beings have done that. And ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, the Taliban, any of these radical imams, the fundamental imams, I'm even starting to say it now, all these homegrown operatives, they're not lone wolves, all these people are a part of the same ideology. And that ideology is not progressive Islam. That ideology is the Islam that was practiced by Muhammad 1,400 years ago. And the problem here is that the more religious somebody gets, even in progressive Islam, the more likely they are to go out and become a jihadist. The more religious they become, the more fundamentalized they're going to become. The more fundamentalized they become, the more likely they are to join something like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram or Taliban or any of these groups. That's the facts. Now, we as a country and in this world can either continue to lie to themselves saying that this isn't a problem, this isn't Islam, it's this and that. You can continue to do that, and they will control when the strikes happen. They will control when we're defeated because we won't be ready. Or we can take the initiative and start making the first strike and going after groups like this. And we can, in the Middle East, start pushing them back to manageable numbers and crushing them so severely that they just don't have the manpower to go any further. And then you hold the leaders of these Islamic countries accountable. And if they don't curtail this and keep it at manageable numbers, then we consider them as part of the of that fundamental group, and we crush them. This is the way it's always worked in history. The strongest survive, and we live under some kind of false social justice warrior snowflake tier mentality that all of mankind is going to get along. And those people believe that if you don't believe the way they do, then they're just going to yell louder. Well, guess what? They're not going to be yelling anymore when their heads get cut off by these jihadists. You can't yell when your head's sitting next to your body. And that's what we have to realize. We cannot fight wars based on what modern day social justice warriors say the tactics should be. We should fight wars the way they've always been fought, the way the animals on the plains of Africa fight them. We go out there and we make sure that we are the mightiest, fiercest, most violent fighting force in the arena. And when you are, nobody messes with you. And then you can live a free life and you can help other countries and can do these things. But you can't just go through life taking punches and expect people to respect you or to step back or not come invade you. We still live in a world where people will invade us. If we declared we have no borders and we're standing our military down, it'd probably be about a day before we got invaded by somebody. I don't know what you're saying there. You want me to search who starts? Okay, see, here's the point where I start to look at Billy as a troll. Hold on one second, folks. Billy, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, okay, before I block you. And I'll tell you why I'm going to do this. All right, Billy, before I block you, this is the reason why I'm getting ready to block you. Because you're a troll, okay? Your argument, the way you argue is you just come on, and when people explain something to you, you follow it up with a more nonsensical question. Then you start insulting people. And that's not the way we play on this show. I said this at the very, very beginning of this show. People want to come on here and they have a different opinion. We'll entertain that. But you want to come on here and be nasty to people, I don't care if you're a veteran. First of all, I don't know if you're a veteran. You could be some fruitcake that goes around that carried some kind of weird bag and wore a trench coat in high school and says he's a veteran. I don't know. So I can't, you serve 20 hours a day. When do you sleep? You sleep 4 hours a day and then you get back up and you work another 20 hours. You're also a liar. Stand by. All right. That's about right. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Dave Robinson says you get 4 hours a day and you choose to use it as a troll. I don't know if Billy's going to respond. I blocked him, but I don't know exactly how it's going to work or not. But listen, you guys got truth and explanations. I tried to explain to Billy the reality. I don't know if Billy got hit in the head when if he says he was in the military and he works 24 hours a day. I have a feeling this is a guy who drinks heavily and probably has never been in the military and is on some kind of Ambien right now or something. I don't know. So anyway, I'm not going to keep everybody on here for much longer. The next couple days are going to be very, very busy. So if I seem scatterbrained, just like today has been very busy, if I seem a little scatterbrained, that's why. But I'm glad everybody showed up tonight. I can't thank everybody enough again for the donations to the GoFundMe page. And yeah, where you been there? It says you apologize for the late arrival, walking the dog. Well, you're forgiven then. Yeah, well, Eleanor, even if Billy looks legit, he needs to get some help. But he's probably, just because somebody is legit doesn't mean they're not a troll. Bill wants to know what I think about Eric Prince taking a bunch of ex-frogs to Afghanistan. I would say I would like to go with him if he goes. I don't know how this media stuff's going to work out in the long run, but that would be, man, that would be an experience not to miss. I will tell you that. However, when I read about this, what Eric Prince is proposing, I don't want to be embedded with, and that's what he's talking about, taking several thousand people and embedding them with Afghanis. I don't feel real good about that. I don't really want to be embedded with Afghanis. Look, I want to fight with Americans. That's all. I don't really need to. I don't need to fight with. I'll support Afghanis in their fight, but we don't. You can't put one or two people in with them and expect something at all to go great. There's going to be people that end up dying because they turned on them or because they had different ideology. Billy, listen, you're blocked. As soon as this goes off, you're banned. So get it out with your system, whatever you want, you freaking troll. And then we'll get rid of you later. So anyway, listen, this isn't network news. I don't have any sponsors, so I can call people freaking trolls when they are. So getting back to this, thank you for the GoFundMe page right here for all that you guys have done for this. I appreciate it very, very much. As you can see, I'm working diligently. Hopefully get a show someday so we can start spreading this message even further. And then I'll be able to take the chat rooms with me and all my friends with me. We'll see if it happens. I don't know if it'll happen. We'll see. But I guess I just got an email there or something. Or an idea. I got to unplug that. So that's it, folks. Let's go to the Truth Zone. I'm going to take Rico for a walk and finish editing this book. And then we will get up tomorrow and have a full day on Newsmax at 3. Sean Hannity's at 5, and then SiriusXM Patriot Channel at 9 p.m. Billy, the number is 866-957-2874. I'll be hosting tomorrow night. Feel free to call in. I'll make sure if a guy named Billy that says he's a veteran, which I highly doubt, calls in, put him through, and I'm going to slam your ass on the radio because you're a troll. All right, so let's go to the Truth Zone, and then we'll close this out. Yeah, there's one thing that gets my goat, folks. And I'll tell you this. If you are a veteran, I don't mind you throwing out the veteran card. I've thrown it out before as well. I believe veterans deserve respect. But if you're going to troll and throw out the veteran card and you're a veteran, I give you zero respect. Because if you want to have dialogue with me, we'll have dialogue. You may have a differentiating opinion than I do, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Unless you're some kind of, I don't know, leftist communist that infiltrated our military and served for a period of time. I don't know. But what really bothers me even more than that, I don't know, maybe it's just about the same, is when people steal the identity of other veterans, or say they're a veteran, or they steal valor from veterans, and they say that they've been wounded or they've been in action, this and that, like Blumenthal who was a Marine, who said he made it appear as though he was in combat when he never was. That really chaps my hide. And I don't give respect to people like that. You want respect, first thing you got to do is show up as a respectful person. Second thing you have to do is give respect. And that's the problem with this world today, is that people show up expecting respect but not willing to give it, and they show up perpetrating a fraud, making themselves out to look like somebody like Billy, who says he works 20 hours a day. Good luck with that one. Unless your job is sleeping and you get paid for it, I don't think you're working 20 hours a day every day. I've been in the SEAL teams. I know what working 20, 24 hours in a day. I know somebody who was a banker. I think, SEALs work hard. Their job is hard. But you want to work long hours, go be a banker. I'm not talking about a teller. I'm talking about down here on Wall Street, those type of bankers. Those people work hours that would crush your soul. So don't come on this show and talk about, I'm a veteran. It doesn't matter what your background is if you're a fool. If you don't have the ability to listen and understand the reality of what's going on, I don't have time for you, because I don't have time to waste on people that don't get reality. There's a phrase in the Bible, I don't know the scripture that it comes from, but it's on my second episode of The Experts, where the man turns around and he says, I cannot come down. We are doing a great work, and I don't have time. I don't have time. We don't have. Even if the world continues long after I'm dead, that means I only have the rest of my life to do what I can, to be the best that I can be, to plant the most seeds, to help more people, to give truth and enlightenment to as many people as possible. It's not about being popular. I don't care what people think about me on this show anymore. I don't care. You don't like the music? Hey, go dance to your own tune. This is a song we're dancing to. You don't like the fact that I only served 5 years in the SEAL teams, which I've had some pushback from SEALs? Hey, listen, I did my part and I moved on and served in other ways. You did your part, whatever. The fact is, I don't have time to waste on haters and trolls and people that won't listen. I'm here to make a difference. And I cannot waste that time. I hope you'll come with me, and I hope that you too will help me plant the seeds in this nation and anywhere else that they'll listen. I'm Jonathan Gillum. I'm looking for Rico. He's down there asleep. We're going to go for a walk. This is The Experts. And remember, wherever you see this face, wherever you see this sign, wherever you hear this voice, the truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget, 7 p.m. tomorrow. 7 p.m. tomorrow. And don't forget, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Help me keep this going, folks.